one player is not enough to carry the whole team. I mean, yes, you got Zion Williamson at Duke, but you still have Cam Barrett and the other major freshmen there to carry some of the slack for them, supposedly, and Purdue just doesn't have that. I mean, Matt Harms is not enough of a scoring threat inside to take the pressure off of Edwards, and then you need someone else to step forward. Ryan Klein hasn't done that. Grady Eifert hasn't done that. Purdue right now, I think if you look at teams that are vulnerable to a first-round upset right now, Tom, Purdue's name is sitting out there like a sore thumb right now. I would not be surprised to see a double-digit seed advance on Thursday or Friday at Purdue's expense next week.
Mo, let's go on over to you. And also, let's talk a little bit about this huge win from Florida State last night against Virginia. I tell you what, they call it March Madness for a reason, because it makes everybody go crazy. I know we got a hard stop with you, Mo, so go ahead and just round off Selection Sunday. What do you think is going to happen? Give us your predictions. Give us your bracketology the best you can before you have to run away, sir. Go ahead.
Well, like Matthew said, I think we're going to see a lot of very marginal to bad, power conference teams make it in there, just because, the NCAA, I think the selection committee feels like they do enough with letting automatic bids to these smaller conferences. They'll throw maybe 1 or 2, 3 of the mid-majors maybe into some at-large bids, but at the end of the day, they want to see the big-name teams with the big fan bases in this tournament, and I think, that's what's going to happen. We're going to see a lot of marginal basketball in this first couple of rounds. We could see a lot of these higher seeds advance against these bad teams for these power conferences. And yesterday with Purdue losing, it's another big game where Matt Painter's teams fall apart. He's not been good at big games at all. Watch this Purdue fan base just talk about how they hate the big games because Matt Painter seems to fail in most of them. So for the first year, though, it should be a very interesting Selection Sunday for a while, because it's going to be interesting to see a lot of these bad teams from the big conferences, see what happens with them and if they make it in. You look at the Big Ten that was so strong early on. Michigan has played terribly down the stretch. Purdue hasn't played well. Michigan State gets knocked off by Indiana twice. Wisconsin has faltered in some big games. So as tough as the Big Ten looked early on, they've really hit the skids here towards the end of the season. So it'll be interesting to see what happens tomorrow.
Mo, for the BS Sports Show. Mo, I know you got to roll because you got to get on the air on your own show. But, hey, real quickly here, we're going to have Adam Jevitt on, Browns fan, on at the end of the show with Ed Kratz, beat writer for the Philadelphia Eagles and our official NFL contributor. But, my God, did we just not have an NFL season? Did we just give the Super Bowl to the Cleveland Browns, the trade? Odell Beckham Jr. from the Giants to the Browns, pretty huge news. And then, of course, we got Antonio Brown and Bell to the Jets. Are you kidding me? I'm scratching my balls. I don't know which one to scratch here, but I'm trying to figure it all out. But at the same time, the winner of the free agency, winner, chicken dinner, is the Cleveland Browns.
Yeah, on paper it looks like it. Hopefully that this team will be able to come together and gel. You've got pretty two diva-ish wide receivers in Odell Beckham and Jarvis Landry. Baker, we've got to hope that he doesn't hit a sophomore slump. But I think the thing for them will be to, kind of just make it through these first 8 games. And then imagine when Kareem Hunt hits the field along with Nick Chubb, too. It's going to be a pretty high-powered offense. And you add in the tight end David Njoku, who's had a pretty good couple of seasons. This team looks pretty fun. Then you add, Olivier Vernon on that opposite side of Myles Garrett. And the defense, it looks pretty damn good as well. So John Dorsey's had a lot of success drafting players. He's the guy that brought in Tyreek Hill and Pat Mahomes and Kareem Hunt to Kansas City. So, yeah, he's got the draft coming up on top of it. So this Cleveland team should be pretty stacked, but I don't think that they're ready to necessarily win and go that far yet. Could they be a playoff team? I think so. But I think it's going to take a year or two of this team to really get it together before they move forward. But I think they've definitely evolved themselves, to the top of their division. There's no way I think that anybody else is even close to this point.
Mo for the BS Sports Show joins us. Thank you so much, sir, for joining us for a brief window today, sir. Always a pleasure. Where can people find your work and your masterpieces, sir?
On Twitter at Mo Radio Show, or you can download the app 931 The Fan, or find us on 931thefan.com.
All right, sounds good, buddy. You have yourself a good show. Talk to you soon.
Okay.
Mo from the BS Sports Show joins us talking some bracketology. March Madness Selection Sunday is tomorrow. It is here, Matthew. Matthew, not only do you do the power grid, we're going to get into that because I know you changed some rankings around with IndyCar. We're going to get into that in the next half hour while we still have you. But let's start with you, your bracketology 2019.
Well, let's take a look right now at those. We talk about the possibility for upsets. Look at all the potential landmines that are currently out there. This is according to Joe Lunardi's bit group. And keep in mind, some of these are not set in stone, but look at teams on the 12 line that are sitting at 12, 13, 14, even the 15 line that are sitting out there, Tom. I mean, you got teams like, for instance, Liberty, Murray State, Davidson, Vermont, could even be UMBC. Of course, you remember what UMBC did last year to Virginia. Virginia knows well. Old Dominion, Georgia State is sitting out there. New Mexico State, St. Mary's, Northern Kentucky, even a dangerous team like a Colgate or a Bradley is sitting out there. There are a ton of potential landmines out there. And again, like I said, for these for filling out your brackets, you have to be aware that if you take a team that's coming in marginally, they are susceptible to a loss on Thursday and Friday. And you look at all those teams on that, even some teams that I didn't mention in there, even like a Northeastern or UC Irvine, and even like the Tommy Amaker's Harvard team, any of those teams that are sitting out there are primed to possibly pull off a surprise here in this tournament. So the blow-up of the brackets that happened last year, I mean, although a lot of people blamed it on the investigation, stuff like that, I just blame it on the fact that the field is a lot tighter than people think it is, and I think it's tight again, if not even more tighter this year. I would not be surprised, again, if we have another Thursday, Friday Armageddon where several top seeds fall. Now, granted, I'm not going to say a 6 seed's going to beat a 1, but I don't think it's out of the question that we could possibly see a 14 or a 15 advance out of round number 1 once again here in 2019.
Well, I put together how we do mock drafts. I put together kind of a mock bracket, and with my top 4. So we'll start here over in the East. I got Virginia going number 1 in the East, even though they did lose to Florida State yesterday. That was huge, and that might make some weight, but I still think they get out with the number 1. They're going to end up playing Iowa or Ole Miss. What are your thoughts in the first round?
I think right now North Dakota State, Norfolk State, even though Norfolk State surprised Virginia several years ago, I don't think either one is going to knock out Virginia. And I think Virginia and Tony Bennett are going to say, well aware, let's take this game seriously this time. So I don't see them losing for the second year in a row. And if Lunardi's bracket holds out, that Iowa-Ole Miss game is a toss-up. But if I would say based on recent play, I would say Iowa narrowly over Ole Miss in that game. And then look at that second one. Yeah, and then I'd say Virginia easily wins that second game, again, assuming Virginia has their act together.
Well, we're going to assume that
Virginia last year, because remember, I had Virginia going all the way last year, and it didn't work out that way.
No, it never worked. We don't. I tell you what, that's why Warren Buffett's willing to pay $1 million for the perfect bracket, because it just almost never happens. Of course, they'll probably end up playing North Dakota State or Norfolk State in that first round, and then we go on over to San Jose in the East. You're going to have to look at Villanova being the spot there, and then of course Kansas State and Vermont probably playing there as well.
That's the classic 5-12 matchup. Villanova is coming in, and I think they do not deserve to be a 5 seed, even if they do win the Big East championship. I think Liberty is going – if Liberty, that matchup does come to fruition, I think Liberty beats Villanova. And Kansas State, Bruce Weber, again, another team that's looked vulnerable. I would not also be surprised if that's Vermont, if that's UMBC, whoever wins that America East championship, which it could be the Retrievers because they're a solid team, as are the Catamounts. That's another team, Kansas State, that I think also is very vulnerable.
A lot of people have Purdue at number 3. You mentioned earlier that they may have lost some stock yesterday with their loss to Minnesota, but a lot of people think that in the first round they'll be playing Old Dominion in the out in Hartford, Connecticut.
A very bad matchup for Purdue. That is a very bad matchup for Purdue. Old Dominion has a history of pulling off upsets. They have done it for years. They have been the ultimate bracket buster. Again, Matt Painter's got to get his team's act together, because this is a type of team in Old Dominion that plays every year time they get in the tournament like they have nothing to lose, no pressure. This is a game, again, that is primed to see an upset.
We move on up down to Jacksonville, and a lot of people will think that you've got Louisville, Oklahoma, and Tennessee, and Albania Christian, which would be one of those teams. Maybe it's a Loyola or Chicago. We don't know yet. But what are your thoughts?
Oklahoma does not deserve to be a 10. In fact, I think Oklahoma, some reason the committee is overvaluing the Big 12, because, I mean, they could have 8. If Texas somehow gets in at 16-16, that would be 8 of the 10 teams in the pack of the Big 12 to get in. Louisville, I think, easily wins that game. Tennessee still has a shot to get to the 1. If they could beat Kentucky today and get that auto bid the SEC, I think Rick Barnes and company, they have a very strong argument for them to get a number 1 seed, possibly in that Midwest bracket over Kentucky.
Well, let's go ahead and get to the last bracket, and that's the Midwest. Columbus, a lot of people think number 1 seed again here, Kentucky. Will be playing Iona and Syracuse and Baylor. Looks like that might be the matchup. Again, predictions, but looks like that might be the matchup there in the Midwest bracket.
If I were John Calipari, I would not want Iona. Tin Clues Club has been a team that's come very close to pull off surprises before. Of the 16 teams that are potentially down there, that's not the one I would want. I want someone like I said, Gardner-Webb, Fairleigh Dickinson, North Dakota State, Prairie View, Gardner-Webb. Iona would definitely not be the one. Now, granted, I think Kentucky would still win that game, but Iona would give them a run for a while. And Syracuse, another team that's on the wrong side that I think that's getting overvalued because the ACC is getting so many teams near the top of, the S curve. I think Baylor easily wins that game, and that's normally not expected in an 8-9 matchup, a blowout, but I think Baylor handily beats Syracuse.
Go over to San Jose, Virginia Tech, New Mexico State, and then Wisconsin and UC Irvine. Again, just predictions, but that's the thought.
New Mexico State, I think, is getting overlooked. I mean, yes, the Wildcats is extremely weak, but they have a very strong record with, I think, 27, 28 victories. I think right now a lot of teams that are around that 5 and that 4 range would love to see New Mexico State lose in that WAC final and not get the automatic bid, because I don't think they have a strong enough say to get into the tournament as an at-large. Wisconsin, I think, is another team that's getting overlooked because of some of the bad losses, like the loss to Indiana they suffered, but I still think they are a potential threat to get to the second weekend. Now, whether they can get to a challenge to a team like Kentucky, I don't know about, but I think Wisconsin advances out of that group with little difficulty. Virginia Tech, again, another very hot or cold team, I think, that's being aided by the Big Three in the ACC, where their seed is getting a little bit higher than it should be based on that performance of those top 3 teams of Virginia, Duke, and North Carolina.
We're running a little bit behind time. We're going to get caught up on Indy Car here in just a moment, but I want to get through this bracketology because Selection Sunday is tomorrow, talking with Matthew Embry from WSBT up in South Bend, also our official IndyCar contributor. So we're going to move on down to the Tulsa matchup. Maryland had a big loss on Thursday night. I don't know if that's going to impact their what people will think will be the number 6 seed against and anticipations would be that they play Florida. And then, of course, number 3 Houston against number 14 Harvard is the thought.
Houston, I still think, is vulnerable. They've suffered some questionable losses, and I think if they would happen to lose to Memphis today, I think that would put them even more in question against a Harvard school that could be potentially dangerous, or any of those teams that are left in the Ivy League, I think, are a threat. Florida, I think, is a hot team right now. They just knocked off LSU in the SEC tournament, the number 1 seed in that conference tournament. I think if they do play a team like Maryland, I think Florida has a good chance to win that ball game.
Over in Columbus, we talked about this game earlier. Buffalo had a big win, and we look at them now. A lot of people